Hi everyone. So right now from this video we are going to start building our to-do list application, right? So basically if you can see I have already created just a default structure of our application that just says right now to-do list. Okay, over here I'll just walk you through the whole folder structure. So inside this to-do app directory I have created my React application. So inside this you can see that I have all my necessary files, all the boilerplate code that we need with all the necessary files, right? So the main entry point is this app.jsx file, right? So I've cleaned up all the code inside app.jsx. I've cleaned up all the index.css and I've cleaned up all the app.css. So we do not have any styling. We do not have nothing right now, right? So great. So what I will be doing is I'll be going to this app.jsx right now. And over here, I've just created a div. Inside that div, I have an h1 which just says to-do list, right? So this is what you see right now. And beside that, I've also opened the demo that we need to create, right? So this is basically all the things, all the elements that we need to put in together. So we'll be creating this in this particular lecture, right? So let's start with this. So all right, if you see this particular demo, right, over here you see that we have a heading, we have an input field, we have an add button, and we have this particular element that is just to have our task inside it and to have a checkbox and to have a delete button, right? So this is a static design. So first we need to create our design, and then we'll start implementing our feature. We'll do all the logical implementation of our features, right? So that's what we need to do. So first we'll just design this particular application. So how we are going to design that, right? So basically if you see, we have all of these things. So one by one, I'll just pick up all the elements and I'll start designing them. All right, so let's see. So over here, if I have, I'll just remove this h1 for now. And what I will do is I'll just remove this div as well. And here I just need a main tag, right? If you're not familiar with semantic tags, I'll strongly recommend you to go and read about them. Very easy, right? So I just have a main tag which will contain all of my application. Inside this, I'll have all of my elements going on together, right? So inside this main container, I'll just give an h1 that says to-do list. To-do list. That's it, right? Let's check this out. And yes, so we have our to-do list. And now below this particular heading, I'll just create this particular field, right? That is what all the things that I need. I need an input field, I need a button, and again I need a div, right? So let's create that as well. So over here I'll just come and I'll start creating that. So for this I'll just create a div below the h1. So I'll just create a div, and this div will just contain these two things, right? That is your input tag and the button. So I'll just give this the input tag and the button. So I'll just use an input tag. So my input tag will be of type text, and yeah, so this will give you a text area, text input field, and then I'll just have a button, right? And this button I'll just do a plus sign like that. So if I look at the view right now, so it looks something like this, right? We have input field, we have button, but it actually looks nothing like this, right? And why is that? Because we haven't added any styling, we haven't designed this thing anywhere, right? So now let's see that how you can actually design your input elements, how you can actually design your HTML elements inside React, right? So what we'll be doing is we'll just go over here and you see this app.css. This app.css file is already imported over here. So whatever you are going to write inside this app.css will start reflecting for your component as well, right? For this component as well. So that's why what we'll do is we'll just go into app.csx, app.csx, and here we'll just start writing our CSS. But as you're already familiar with CSS, what do you need? You need classes, IDs, elements, right? All of these things you need to style your elements. So what we can do is we can just go over here and we can just give some particular class names, IDs to these particular elements. Now, over here, when we use simple CSS, what we do? We just give a class and we just start designing it, right? We just start designing it. So I can give this a class and I can just call this input container, something like that, right? I can just call it like that, input, right? So this is how you will be giving it in simple HTML, but in React, what you need to do is you need to give this as class name, right? So class you'll be giving as class name because yes, this is a rule from JSX, right? So JSX always says that okay, whenever you use class, just give class name. Okay, because what used to happen in React is before functional components, there used to be class components, right? So just to have that name difference between classes and class name between JSX and JS. So this particular thing was done. So over here, we have class name, right? That you must remember. So now we have this input container as our class name, and now we can just copy this and we can just go to our app.css and we can have this over here. and we can just start designing it. But before actually designing the input container, we can just set up a default design for our app, right? So let's set up this default design. So what I will do is I'll just style my body like this. So I already have my code, right? So this is basically the font family that I'm going to use, right? And this is basically the background color that I'm going to use. So I'll be pushing it all in a GitHub repository, so you'll be able to get all of this code from there, right? As this is not a CSS code, so I'll not be enforcing CSS details over here, right? So I'll just copy paste the design. I'll just show you how to use these designs and stuff like that, right? So over here, I have just used my body, and inside my body, I've given the font family to this family and background color to this color, right? Let's see if it has been applied or not. Yes. So I have a bluish kind of a background, and I have this font. Great. So now I have to design this input field. I have to design this button. Now let's basically get started and start designing our input elements, button elements, all of these things, right? So basically, first thing that we need to do is we need to have all of these things together at the center. So first, what I will do is I'll just target my h1 tag, and I'll just call this as text align center, right? So now my h1 is at the center. Now I just need to get my input elements and the button at the center as well. So what I will do is I'll just select my input container. I hope I'm writing the spelling correctly, container, right? Let's check app.jsx input container, right? I just like to copy paste class names just to avoid any spelling mistakes. So I'll just copy this, right, for safety purposes. All right. So I have this input container. I'll just add a dot, and I will just open it, and I'll start styling it, right? So inside this input container, what I need to do is I'll just give this a display of flex, right? So that, yeah, display flex. So nothing actually happens over here. But inside this, now what we'll be doing is we'll be just giving it a flex direction of column, right? We'll be giving it a flex direction of column. So when we give a flex direction of column, they will actually start arranging themselves column wise, right? All of the properties will start arranging themselves column wise, and then we'll just give align items to center. That's it, right? And now you see everything is at the center. The button is down below the input field, and you have input field, you have a to-do list written like this, right? So we have achieved the positions where we need our elements to be, but yes, the designing is still not exactly how we want it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start writing some designs as well, right? So over here, if you see inside my input container, let's go to app.jsx. Inside my input container, I have all of these things, that is input and button. So what I will do is I'll just say that, okay, input container, and inside input container, I'll target the input field. So how am I going to do that? So I'll just say input container, and let's target the input field inside this, and then we'll start designing it. So I'll just say input like that, right? And let's start designing this. So inside this input, what I will do is I'll just give this a little width of let's say 300 pixel. I'll just give this a height of 30 pixel, right? And I'll just give this font size something. So we can make it a little bigger. So the fonts can be a little bigger, 1.25 rem, suppose, something like that, right? So I've given this up. Let's see. Yes, so it looks like this, and we have bigger fonts as well, right? So it completely resembles this input field. Alright, so input field is done. Now the next target that I need to do is I need to target the button, exactly. So I'll just go over here, and similarly as I have targeted the input field, I'm going to target the button as well, right? So let's target the button, and in place of input, I'll just write button, right? So over here we just have single elements, that's why I'm targeting all of these elements like that. But when you have multiple elements, this is not the recommended way of doing it, right? Then you should style them separately. Alright, so now I have input container, and inside this input container we have this button. Let's design this button. So what this button has? So this button is a rounded button which has a half border at the right side with black color, and which is empty at this particular side, right? So we have this particular button, and inside this we have a plus icon, and this is red in color. So we have to give this all of these properties. So how we are going to design this, right? So let's start designing this. So over here in my input container, in my button, what I will do is I'll just give this a width and height first, right? Let's give this 40 pixels, and let's give this a height of 40 pixel as well. Great. So I guess 40 pixel, and Yes, so the button is bigger right now, 40 pixel height, 40 pixel width. And now we just need to give it some properties. So how to make a button or how to make an element around it? Yes, we can give this a little border radius, right? So let's give this a border radius of some amount. So over here we can just give this a border radius of around, let's say 20 pixel we give it, right? So great. So right now it has a border radius of 20 pixel as well, right? And now we can just go over here and we can just start writing our code. So inside this input container, I've given this some border radius of 20 pixels, and by default it is taking this black and grayish color, right? And then we can just go over and we can write our code over here. Border radius is done, and then we can just give this a little font size. Let's say I guess just give this 1.5 rem. Not optional, 1.5 RAM. Yeah, something like that. And then we can move ahead and we can just give this a background color. Right, so I've decided this background color, that is a little reddish kind of a color. So we'll be providing this particular color, right? And let's see. Yes, this completely looks like that, right? Nice button. Great. So we have this particular button with us, and now I think we need to give it a little gap. So you can give it a little gap, you can give it a little margin. So let's give this a little margin as well, right? So I'll just give this a little gap. So let's go over here and let's try to give this a little gap of 10 pixel maybe, 20 pixel maybe. Or let's give this a margin as well, okay? Because I don't think gap is working right now. So just give this a margin top of 20 pixel. Great, I guess this is exactly what we needed. Or I guess we can just give this 10 pixel, right? That will be better. Great, so right now we have our input field, we have a button, and we can, yes. So we are slowly moving towards this design, right? So basically the first part of our app where we need to enter our task, where we need to add our task, we have done that, right? So we are done with this. Now we basically need to target this particular element, that is our task element where your task will be written, right? So let's basically create this first and then we'll design this. So basically let's move to our code. Over here I'll just go to app.jsx. And inside my app.jsx, I'll just start designing this next part, right? So let's give this another div, right? Let's have another div for this. And inside this, we'll just have another class name. And now let's just give this container or task container or whatever you can call this. I'll just simply call it container, right? So this will contain all of my to-do list items and like that. So inside that, I'll just give another div, right? And this div will have a class name of to do, right? So this will have my to do elements, and inside this to do I'll just put my code. I'll just give a paragraph tag and I'll just say go to the gym, something like that, right? Or go to the class, anything, right? Just a static task I'm giving it right now. We'll be generating this div dynamically when we'll be working with our application, right? So over here we can go and let's check our code. All right, it's at this particular side. We again need it at the center, right? So what we can actually do is we can go and we can style it again, right? So we have go to class and we have container and to do. So let's go to our app.css and let's style our container a little bit. So over here, let's go to the container. So we'll just target the container, and inside this container, let's give it a little margin top of 15 pixel, right, so that it keeps a margin. And then we can just give it some more properties. Let's say I just give this display flex because I again need it at the center, right? So what I will do, I'll just apply the same trick over here, flex direction to column, right? Align items to center. Great. Cool. So this is at the center as well. Nice. So I have go to the class, and over here I do not have this particular border like structure, right? Just a container like structure which contains my task and these buttons. So I just need to create them as well. So basically I have this container, and now I just need to style this to do element so that I can create that beautiful looking task container, right? So let's just have this to do class, and I'll just go into my app.css, and over here I'll just have this particular class, right? So inside this to do, I'll just add some properties. So I'll just give this a width of 500 pixel, right? And I'll just give it some font size of let's suppose I give this 1.2 rem, and then I can just give this a little display of flex, right? And I'll just say, let's check how this looks right now. So it looks something like this. I'll just give this some let's justify its content to space between, and then let's talk about, let's give this a little border radius as well, and we'll just give this 10 pixel. But to view this border radius, we'll need to give this a background color, right? Then only we'll be able to see those curves and see those styling. So I have this white color kind of color with me, so I'll just provide this to this, and yeah, this color we'll be having over here. And yeah, now you see that we have this entire container with 500 pixel width and a little bit of height, and we have all of these properties at place, right? And then we can see the task as well. Go to the class. Great. So yeah, nearly we have created this particular design, and now we'll just add some padding maybe just to have this effect, so that we can have a little bit space inside this. So I'll just give a little bit padding to this, right? Let's give a little bit padding and let it be 0 pixel and 5 pixel. Great, right? Wow, cool. Great. So we have basically created this, and now what we need to do is we just need to create this checkbox. So this can be checked, and we need to create this delete button, right? So I'll just go back to the code of app.jsx, and over here we can start creating those buttons as well. So what I will do is I have this input button, I have all of these buttons, and inside this to do, let's create the buttons, right? So I have this task, and just below this particular task, if I have this div, so it will be a good idea to have all of these inside this div only, right? Because we need the buttons and the checkbox inside this div. So I'll just create another div for this, right? Div inside a div, and I'll just give this a class name of actions, so that I can know that these are my action buttons, or these are basically my action elements where I can do something, right? So actions, right? Or action buttons, whatever, or action elements, whatever you can give your class names. And then I can just have an input of checkbox. So this will not be text, this will be checkbox, right? So let's see. So yep, a checkbox is visible, and now I just need a button to be over here. So I'll just give this a button, and I'll just name this button as delete. So I have a checkbox and I have delete button. Now I just need to style them quickly, right? So I'll just go to my app.css, and over here inside to do whatever buttons we have, whatever action items we have, we'll just quickly style them, right? So over here we can just go and we can just do this, right? We can just go over here and we can just say dot actions, and we just need to style our button a little bit. So I'll just style my button. So let's give this a background color of red, right? Simple background color, which is this color only, which we have used for our button. So let's give this color to our button. Great, delete button, but now it looks a little off. Let's design this a little bit. So we'll just give this little text color, right? So we can give this a little text color of white. So the color looks white of the text, right? So we'll just give this white, simple white. Then let's give this a little height and width as well. So height, and let's have the height as 30 pixels, and let's have the width as 75 pixels or something like that. Yes, this looks good. Let's check this particular button. Okay, so we have border radius as well. So I'll just give this a little border radius. So let's give this a border radius of 10 pixels. Right. Let's check this button. Yes, this looks decent, and we now just need to place this at the center. So what we can do is we can just give this a little. First, let's. So we have this actions, we have this to do, and now inside this container, we can just give a gap of 5 pixels. Okay, so these two are set, but why it is not coming at the center? So we can just give this a little bit of margin from the top, I guess, or we can just make it flex and display at the center. We can do both of these things, but what we can do right now is we have aligned everything. I guess this should have worked, but yes, I guess we can just align the items, right? Because it will just vertically align things for you. Let's say align the items to center, and I think this should do the work. Yes, great. So now we have this thing, right? We have this checkbox and we have this delete button. Great. So now we have created this. And if you see this, yeah, it resembles something like that. It's just that the font size is a little bigger. So I'll just give it a little font size, right? So let's give this particular class a font size. Font size 1.2 rem. Great, right? Or a little smaller, 1.05. Yes, looks nice, right? So we have these buttons, we have this checkbox and everything, and now we can just give this a little margin left so that we can separate out our checkbox and our button a little bit. Just a little bit of design changes. So I'll just give this a margin left and I'll just give this 10 pixel. This should do the job for me. And yes, wow, looks pretty decent, right? So we have created this design and wow, this is cool. So now the basic static design is complete. From the next lecture, we'll start implementing all the logical features. We'll keep adding our task, delete our task. We'll see how you can work with React and how you can implement all of these features. See you on the next lecture.